What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Rideshare Hub. My name is Greg Wave. I am on vacation right now in Orlando, Florida. If I had driven here, I might have tried out some Lyft because it seems like it's a pretty poppin' area. But I'm just visiting with my family. I'm using my mom's Jeep Compass. And so obviously I can't use that to drive, or I would get deactivated if somebody reported me. Could risk it, but I'm a safe driver. I don't play games. So what I'm doing for you guys today is how to handle and kind of like calm down or like negotiate with bad passengers. We're in a business of people, and eventually you are going to run into people that don't like you, are rude, are jerks. You can be giving stupendous service and they're still just going to be that way. It's people, it's just the world we live in, and it's just, one of the tougher parts that we do deal with. So I'm going to talk to you guys about, just how to go about dealing with bad passengers and, how you can hopefully maintain good ratings and still maybe even get tipped from them. So the very biggest thing, obviously, when you're picking someone up, and most of you guys have learned this, is that it really is kind of a psychology game when you pick someone up. I've talked in a few videos about how I have an extensive background in sales. Well, for my age, obviously there's a lot of guys that have way more sales experience than me. But I have I've been in sales for like six-ish years. And, specifically I did door-to-door sales for about 3 years. And the one thing I learned is that you have to be able to read someone within 5 seconds of them opening the door to even have a chance at them listening to you, because most people are just going to cut you off and say not interested and slam the door. So that's a really extreme analogy, and it's definitely not like that for Uber and Lyft. Uber and Lyft passengers will generally be a lot more redeeming than slamming a door on your face. But a lot of people you don't. And so figuring out people's personality types and the mood they're in and kind of doing that is really important. Yeah. So what I do is right away, if I'm sensing kind of bad vibes off someone, I'm trying to figure out their personality type. Okay. So if you get in and it's just real negative vibes from someone, you got to figure out what their type is. Are they depressed negative? Are they really ticked off negative? Is it they have crippling anxiety? And you want to try and figure out what that is and kind of cater to it. And then also the type of person they are, because a lot of times, when I'm in a bad mood, I'll be in a bad mood, but I'm still really trying to not make people feel bad with me. That's the type of person I am. They'll be like, yeah, it's just a tough time I'm going through. And then I'll try and shift it off. So obviously if you get a person like me, kind of sympathize with them, but don't keep dwelling on it with them. If it seems like they're trying to move on, don't keep asking them about why their day was so crappy. Don't ask them why their boyfriend broke up with them, why their girlfriend broke up with them and they're crying, especially if they're trying to clearly talk about something else. And in most cases, guys, the safest bet is going to be try and give a little bit of conversation, say a few nice things. I'm real sorry that happened to you. And then just let them play on their phone. Let them just be in silence. That's usually going to be your best bet. Now, what's tough is if you get someone who's being really engaging, but they're not giving you anything to work with. They're just talking about how bad their day was, and they're just being kind of vague about how bad their day is. And they don't really even give you a chance to talk. These are some of the harder rides, because I get people like this all the time where before I can even ask why their day was rough, they're already going on and on and on. And a lot of times it works in your favor because maybe they just want someone to listen. So a lot of times you got to feel them out too and be okay, they're not really giving me a chance to talk. They probably want to listen. But sometimes, and what can be a really, really tough one, is they'll just be really negative, and anything you say won't be the right answer. So you might be oh yeah, that's really unfair, that kind of sounds like this could be going on. They'd be well, no, that's not it, it's just, and then it's you slowly start becoming the bad guy a little bit. So what I've learned with people like that, don't try and guess with them, and don't try and pretend, or even if you can, tell them you can sympathize with them or can relate. Just kind of butter them up. just be like, wow, you know, I say like really broad generic things. Wow, that really is terrible. Oh, that's so bad. I'm so sorry, man. That's rough. You know, and a lot of times I'll make a joke or I'll make an offer that I know they won't accept. Be like, man, you know, like, man, I feel like I gotta go buy you a beer or something. Like, I'll say that a lot to people because obviously they're not gonna be like, yeah, could you, man? You know, I mean, I guess hypothetically they might one day. But I like saying things like that sound somewhat genuine, but like they can tell I'm not trying to like pry into their story too much, you know? So that's how I generally handle people like that, where they're like just purely negative and won't even let you really say anything about it. Now, some of the tougher ones are like if you get someone who's just like incredibly rude to you. And I've had this happen a few times where it's like, it's almost like they're just rude because you're an Uber driver. And even though they're taking an Uber, they like frown upon you for being an Uber driver. Like I've had people who kind of like, I felt like they kind of felt a certain way about me because I didn't go to college. Like they asked me if I had a college education or if I was studying currently. Said, no, you know, I actually never went to school. And it's kind of like, I feel like they look at me as like this pig in society who's like not contributing and is just out here driving Uber and doing nothing for the world, you know? And people like that can be probably your toughest like prototype of passenger because it's more than likely the way they were raised that makes them think that way, that you're like an inferior peasant for whatever reason it is. And so convincing them otherwise is never going to be the move. So I have a little trick here where I try and kind of slowly make them actually sympathize for me. And so, you know, I'll be like, you know, if they ask, you know, what I do, I'll tell them what I do, but I'll kind of tie in maybe why I didn't go to college. And like, for me, you know, I just didn't know what I was going to do. And I'll just be like, yeah, you know, to be honest, I was a really clueless 18-year-old and, you know, I was kind of an idiot. I was partying too much and I would have been a mess in college. So for me, I actually think it's a blessing. And now I'm working really hard to start my own business. And so I slowly create the narrative of myself I want them to see to where I feel like I'm given a fair chance on how they look at me. And here's the reality is that in a lot of these scenarios, if people actually knew us, they probably wouldn't think these ways at all. And that's why I'm okay with doing these things, because sometimes people had a bad vibe from some actual crappy Uber driver they had, and now they're paranoid that we're all crap, you know, and that we're all jerks and that we all hate our passengers, you know? So I'm always trying to like recreate the narrative so that they see like, hey, this kid's actually decent, you know, like, yeah, he's an Uber driver, but he's clearly not like that last guy I had. And yeah, you know, he's uneducated, but you know what? Sounds like he's trying to actually do a lot for the world. So I like trying to slowly change that narrative. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you guys is with passengers, like in their eyes, they're paying you. So they're going to want you to like cater to them. You know, think about how a waitress acts. A waitress isn't going to her tables and being a total B word to the customers, you know, just because she's having a bad day. She's putting on a mask and she's smiling, making jokes, and trying to relate with them. Why? Well, for one, she wants to provide good service, but for two, she wants tips. So what I've noticed is I've seen a lot of drivers, and I've heard a lot of stories where drivers are like always trying to argue and debate and like bicker with especially the ruder passengers. And I'm like, what do you really think is going to happen with that? They're going to give you a 3-star rating and they're not going to tip you. Why would you not try and change that narrative? Why would you not try and find some common ground with them? It's their ride. They paid for it. If they want to feel that way, let them feel that way. But the best case is think like how a waitress or a waiter would think. They're going to try and navigate that person down, cool them down, and slowly show them like, hey, I'm an awesome waitress, so you're going to want to tip me well. And that's the mindset I have. Like when I get people like that, I have that mindset of I got to make them see that I'm a good dude, you know? And so if you feel like you are in general a good person, I don't feel like it's bad to try and do something like that, you know? But obviously be truthful, you know, don't tell them a bunch of lies so that they like you. You know, be honest and be real. But there's a really powerful thing in human connection where like people will sympathize with your real story. You know, it's the power of your testimony, the life you've lived and what you've gone through. They might not be able to walk in your shoes, but if they've seen a little bit of it, and maybe they walked a little bit of it listening to you, you know, they might understand more where you're coming from, and it might not align with their beliefs and their core values and how they were raised, but it might get them to a point where they say, you know what? Yeah, I just don't understand. I didn't grow up like him, but I'm not going to judge him for that. He's out here trying. He's out here hustling. I have a really strong belief that in general, most people have really good, honest, pure intentions and want to be friends with as many people as they can. But this world slowly corrupts us, and this world slowly changes our minds, and we start getting to points where we're paranoid, we're scared, we're anxious, and a lot of times people are the root causes of that. So when you get these people, the key for you is also remember, hey, they've got their own story. And maybe it's like this real stuck up, snotty rich person, but like, think about how they grew up, where they've never known anything else, and they were raised by rich, snotty parents. Like, what can you really expect them to do? How can you really expect them to act? Or maybe it's a different scenario, but I hope you guys see what I'm saying with this, that I think a lot of times as passengers and drivers, we all want to point fingers at the passenger. And then I think the passengers all want to point fingers at us. And the problem is like, that's just like a common problem in humanity, you know? So I think the key is like, just like, because we're the ones providing the service and trying to make money on tips, we got to be the ones that are going to be the bigger man and woman. We got to be the ones that are going to say, you know what, I'm going to lay my ego down and my pride down, and I'm going to figure out a way to have a good ride with this person. And like I said earlier in the video, guys, a lot of times that just means silence. It's not always going to mean trying to figure out how to have a great conversation with someone. But in general, just try and relate, and I think you'll see a huge increase in your success with some of those grumpier and rude passengers. So that's what I got for you guys today. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and it helps you out in the future, and I will talk to you guys real soon.